the hottest startups will still raise.
We invested in this company. We were so wrong.
We fall in love with the numbers first.
It could shock some people.
That really hurt because you can really say, okay, we missed the bus here.
Probably the growth is very limited.
Okay, what's the solution actually? Okay, this is a problem, but how do I solve this?
What you're doing is a forecast game.
You wake up Saturday 3 a.m. crying because your
So
CTO
sad.
just left.
I like it because it's so sweet.
This is flawless execution. This is why we want to be part of that story.
Michael Rager, thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
How's it going?
Very well. Very well. I always love to come back to Munich. I was born here, so from that perspective.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's like coming home to me.
It's a lovely day actually today.
Yeah.
Munich is the sunniest city in Germany, I've heard.
That I don't know, but it's to me, it's despite being rooted in Hamburg by now, but it's to me it's the most beautiful city, at least in Germany. But you can have long debates about that.
This caption will go to all social networks anyway, so thanks for that. So you're a partner at DTCP. Can you just tell to anyone that maybe don't know what DTCP is, what you guys do?
Yeah, so DTCP is a global investment platform today. Since 2015, we've raised a bit over $2 billion in capital, mainly along two strategies that we drive today. The one is more like a private equity natured infrastructure fund, and the other one is our growth equity team. Obviously, where I'm part of. And in the growth equity team, we invest mostly in B2B SaaS startups, the Series B or later, in Europe, Israel, and the US. We are in our third fund generation by now. That's a multi-LP fund. Obviously, I think we'll talk a little bit of the history later. But so it's a global investment platform.
And how did you start it? Where did it all start?
So it started off as a spin out of DT, Deutsche Telekom back then, and from the get go, it was set up, at least especially the VC fund, as a purely financially oriented independent fund structure.
Okay.
The first fund was a single LP fund. But the setup and the mechanics were that you would expect of any classical financial VC investor. So we tried to basically have the best of both worlds, both obviously the connection to DT, the access to corporate and what have you, but both the flexibility and the independence. And especially independence to take decisions on where to invest and maximize on financial returns.
Okay.
Obviously.
So let's say that the first fund, it was more related to doing also business together with DT, I guess, and then at some point.
Now the positive thing, and I think for both sides, was the DT's rationale. I think back at that point was to have a vehicle that is close to the market, close to the ecosystem, that also provides access for them to new technologies, a certain ecosystem of people, what have you, but also have the team run independently and basically focus on financial returns. And from the investments decisions that we were able to take, it was never the idea to invest close to DT's business heart.
Okay.
So there was never an angle, let's say, since I've been at the company now for a little over 8 years. Also in the beginning, there was never an IC where you asked the question, why do we need this? It was always, how does this get big? How can you scale this?
So it was
absolutely
VC.
Independent.
Okay.
So it was clear-cut VC.
So 8 years ago was the first fund, I guess, or something like that, or
2015, yeah. Yeah, that was the first fund. That was single LP structure. We had we had success very early on. I think the timing, the topic B2B SaaS was at the very beginning back then. So that was very fortunate. And we saw that this was working very well. With Fund 2, we opened the platform and were able to welcome our first external LPs. And now with Fund 3, obviously, I think now that's a bit over 20-25 LPs. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. And so that is
not that many for having 2 billion asset under management.
No, that is the LPs only with the view of the GE fund. Obviously, the infrastructure fund, they have another set of LPs. So that's
okay. So they're really differentiated teams and everything.
It's dedicated, differentiated teams, separated funds, so that you have that. You have the ability to really focus on your strategy and nothing else.
Okay, that's good. That makes sense.
I think also for the private equity infrastructure play, you need different people for that, who have a different kind of skill set and a different view than what you would need at the growth equity side or when you invest in a Series B type business.
It's great that you're here because you're the first growth fund that we have.
That's an honor.
Yeah. So when we talk normally with earlier investors or even earlier startups, it is about, let's say, the connection that you have with them.
Yeah.
The potential you see in the team. Of course, the word that you see the most is team, and market. Okay. In your size of business, I guess this changed a little bit, and you already mentioned financial returns a couple of times.
Yeah.
So knowing that it's more a finance numbers business, first, what do you think that is the USP kind of DTCP when a company thinks of potential investors?
I think it's a combination of two things. In the team, we have a whole part of the team has entrepreneurial background, either being serial entrepreneurs themselves, having worked in startups. I grew up in a startup for half a decade, so that we built from scratch back then. So you do know what the founder and the team, what they're going through operationally, how you wake up Saturday 3 a.m. crying because your CTO just left and stuff like that. And you simply have an awareness that it is supposed to be the fact that there is fires everywhere. Yeah. Because you are in constant, if everything goes right, you are in constant growth pain. And so you don't scare easy anymore because you can relate to that. You have, and you also have understanding if, can I have that please in green as well instead of blue? No, because there is different tasks that they have at hand as well. And so from that perspective, I think what we bring to the table is that close relationship that we wanna have with the founders, because in every startup journey that we were happy to be part of, there is always a time when it rains, and when it rains, you need to be able to pick up the phone and talk to the people that you're working with. Yeah. And there it's very, very important that you actually want to pick up the phone. And that's a two-way street. That's not a one-way street. Yeah. That is both the founder talking to you and you talking to the founder. And that mostly is rooted in a personal relationship where we really want to work together for 7-10 years. And I think one of the better stories here, or most prominent stories obviously with us, is Lina X, where we invested in the Series B we led the Series B back in 2017, and last September we sold them the company was sold to SAP at a unicorn exit, and there over this 6-year time span, friendships were established as
I can imagine,
and that's the perfect picture that you want at that point. Having said that, obviously it's not just having fun together and having a beer together. The second part that we bring is that we turned our investment process or the investment process a little bit upside down, in the sense that we developed a flight path model. That's a benchmark model, as we only look at B2B SaaS. So whenever we look at a company, We look at numbers first, actually. So it's diving through the numbers. We have a database now of, I think it's 500 different companies, all SaaS companies across different ages, different categories, segments, what have you.
Is it own data, by the way? Or do you use any platform? Is it your own data?
Yeah. And so with that, we have a pretty good view of what a successful SaaS company looks like from a metrics perspective at any given stage.
Okay.
And that is the first part of our investment process, to look at that and see, okay, is that from a benchmark perspective? Is that green? Is that what we're looking for as a high growth investor? Or are they off somewhere? And with that has two very, very good results. The one is that immediately, with only looking at the P&L and running that benchmark analytics, that we transparently share also with the companies, irrespective if we invest or not, you immediately, within 1 or 2 hours of receiving the data, can dive deep into an operational discussion. Because you have a very good feeling, okay, if the metrics or the metrics combination here lines up like this, that is a hint that, and these 2 points, there is something off, be that go-to-market, pricing, product, what have you. And you can immediately have a very deep and operational discussion based on that. And that is mostly highly appreciated by the founders. And the second part of it, and that I think there we come back to the team, is that there is always the danger that you fall in love with a team and a topic, and then you try to make Excel work for you. And see, okay, how can I justify mathematically that this could make sense? Because I like the team. And that's the later the stage, the more dangerous that approach is.
Yeah, of course.
And so from that perspective, we turn that around, that we fall in love with the numbers first, to know, okay, this is for us. This is really within our scope. We can help here. These are the points that we can tackle together with the company. And then we fall in love with the team. And this removes a little bit the human bias and your, let's say, gut feel. At the end of the day, you still need gut feeling to make the right decision. And I think there we have a very decent track record. We invested, I think, in 34 companies, having sold 14 of those by now within the last few years. So I think from that perspective, it served us very, very well.
That's nice. With a good return, I expect.
Yeah. And I mean, other USPs, obviously we have a setup with Israel and US. We have local teams on the ground in each of these regions. So we're able to help companies bridge the gap from one continent to another because we have local ecosystem there. We can vet CVs with the local team there. By now we have a corporate ecosystem that spans, I think, over 100 corporate network partners that we can really access to either open doors for companies, having expert calls, what have you. So there is a different set of skills and soft things that we can bring to the table here.
Sometimes, I mean, you've said many interesting things that I try to catch to ask you later about, but about these specific topics, sometimes I think that let's say that for the startup, the risk is clear because they're betting kind of their life on what they're doing normally. For the VCs, it's less because we have 40 bets, we have more bets, so it's not that complicated. So I think that mismatch or that unbalance sometimes lead many VCs to say, I'm going to do an intro to you to X number of corporates, whatever, but this never gets tracked. This is never on a paper. This is never something tangible for a startup. How do you manage to make this tangible so a startup can actually trust that you will do this?
In an ideal scenario, you build the relationship with the startup actually 2-3 years in advance before you do the investment. And I think the crazy years of late 20 and 21 were a little bit different, where you had conversations with a company and they said, we're here, you have the data room, you have 48 hours to hand out the term sheet. There obviously that demands a little bit of trust on both sides, that everyone can live up to the expectation. But in a scenario where typically we try to engage with company that we deem interesting from a thematic perspective after their seed round. So that's typically 2-3 years before they grow into the area of where we would invest. And if you do that, then over these 2-3 years, you can build that relationship of the founder can ask questions and get a feeling for, okay, is there anything coming back as an answer that I can actually use? Mm-hmm. The benchmarking that they come with, can I actually use that for planning? Are there valuable insights? And over the span of 2 or 3 years, are there actually meaningful introductions that they can make to us? Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is the best way to simply build that trust, so that when you enter into the investment, you're already there. And this is a question that's not there anymore. And that cuts both ways, because also from the investor's perspective, you've seen 2 or 3 years of company traction, and you have a feeling for, okay, do they end the year close to where it was planned? And I think that is the best way. Yeah. Obviously, there is I would imagine. In different situations, you can live up to the expectations in different ways. Some companies need not every company needs the same from an investor or from you as an investor, and so this comes in a fairly few numbers of color.
That's good. Related to something you just said, you met the entrepreneurs. You tried to do it 2-3 years in advance. I try to put myself in your shoes, and it would be like, okay, so should I have some seed VCs that I use as a deal flow providers? Should I have some key relevant people for different topics like fintech, health, whatever? Or how do you get the best deals? Or is it something like I'm going to just do a filter in PitchBook or Crunchbase or whatever, and then I'm going to just cold call the entrepreneurs to get it? What's your way to get into the best deals?
All of the above. quite frankly, it's and that's a good thing, because only by being diligent in that way and basically have your go-to-market approach as a VC also across multiple channels, that's the only way to gain full visibility. So yes, you do want to build strong relationships to seed funds. If that always needs to be a fund investment, or if that's more on the personal side, and once you had a joint investment and you see, we can actually work together well, obviously this gets better. So to get access to their portfolio companies and what's happening there, you have to be on the ground, be on conferences, be in cities, meet entrepreneurs, also randomly especially when they're not raising, and you can actually have a discussion free of any specific interest at that point in time. And as you said, it's expert networks, angel investors that and venture capital at the end of the day is an access game that works best via network. Yeah. And so with that perspective also, it's an industry that works over time, because building your own network here simply it's not measured in quarters. It's measured in years, if not decades. Yeah. I think if you look at the best investors out there.
This is curious, because I have people from the outside of the VC world that they tell me, yeah, man, but you're always with the network, but it's such a closed environment, and because it's very difficult to get in, because, okay, if you have the network, then you're able to leverage on that, get to the best deals. But if you're not, you cannot even build the track record because you don't have the network, etc., etc. So this boils down to a question that I have for you. So it's like, how did you make it to a partner at DTCP?
Okay. So in general, yes, it's hard to get into VC. It's actually harder to stay there for a long time. But I think that's in general that's a good thing from that perspective. And I mean, the problem that you just described, that I don't have a network to begin with, or I don't have access, that's how almost everyone started at some point.
Yeah,
You have to start somewhere. It's the same with your startup journey. You have a product idea. So who's my first customer? Who do I find? Family, friends to actually try that MVP. And so in my case, as I grew up in a startup, I had a few connections from on the operational side, CEOs, etc., who basically introduced me to a set of people from the VC world, and that's where I basically met Thomas Preuss, who's a managing partner here at DTCP, with whom I've been working. I've been working at his previous fund. Basically, that was my entry there, and with him I've been working now for it's almost a decade of our marriage, I'd say. But that was the start. At some point, you need a little bit of luck on timing and get your foot in the door. But I think if you're persistent, if you're dedicated, and make an effort, there is always a way to at least get a toe or a foot in the door. And once you have that in, that is where simply dedication, long-term thinking. I said this is something that is measured in years or decades, and not in short time frames. So it takes patience at the end of the day. It takes a little bit of patience. It takes dedication, because you really put in a lot of work, lots of hours, lots of traveling, and then loyalty and persistence. And to make it, how did I make it as a partner with that? I mean, I started at DTCP as an associate in early 2016. And this is what I really like about DTCP, because I'm not the only example. It is a platform that allows you to grow with the platform. And my partner in the US, we started off at the same time. So we both climbed the ranks over the years. And the same is true also for our still a bit more junior team who started off with us. Many of them were interns with us, then were transitioning to analysts and are still with us. And so you need to see if the fund that you're in, if that is a platform, and if there is historic examples where people could grow with the platform. Or if you are in a setting where you have a partner level and every 2 years the associates change. That was the model, I think, 15 years ago. And but that changed, and I think in many funds, or in almost all the funds successful funds that have been around for longer, they managed to have this also generational change and shift, and that is only able if you let people grow from inside.
And it's not easy. It's not easy also either for the partners that are there, I guess, either, because at some point they have to, I guess, let the stage for others. So. That is true. It works better for some than for others, but in general, I mean, if you think of one fund generation, one fund typically is a 10 years game. Yep.
So and every 4 years you raise a new fund. So I think if you're thinking of, okay, I have to let go and make a bit of room, because it's also not that you have to leave, but it's just giving a bit of space. After 3 or 4 fund generations, we're talking about 15 to 20 years. And that works for many. Yeah, I would say.
I'm also curious about your difference in life between your startup life and your VC life. Which one would you prefer?
Well, obviously, I think the obvious answer now is the VC one, because
otherwise you would be in a startup.
Exactly. Exactly. I think I highly appreciate the operational experience, because, as I said before, it gives you a different kind of insight, a different kind of connection and understanding for what the founders are going through, and I think that's very important if you're sitting on the VC side. And I think the stress level is at times the same. I think if you're in a startup that is growing fast, the operational stress is different and it's more constant than what you would have in the VC side of things. I would say
goes more in peaks, I guess.
Exactly. You have a different set of stress on the VC side. That's also like you have deployment pressure, portfolio work, what have you. But it's different to, I don't know, all of a sudden you have an operational issue because your logistics chain, there is an issue or a hiccup, or your chief sales officer leaves and you don't know, okay, what does that mean to our US expansion? Your CTO leaves and I need to step in as a founder again to lead the tech team.
That's when you wake up crying at 3 a.m. that you said.
Exactly. Exactly. But I mean, the best CEOs that I know, they're pressure ninjas at the end of the day. I mean, obviously it hurts them as well, but then they quickly shake themselves and say, okay, what's the solution actually? Okay, this is a problem, but how do I solve this? And that's amazing to see.
I have to ask you a question that in your case, actually, it also makes even more sense due to the background of DTCP. And it is that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that you just said that in your case for the growth fund is all about financial returns. You have to build this relationship, etc., but it is all about financial returns. When I think about the corporate venture capital model, the example of Wayra or others, is like, okay, I try not only, of course I do look at the financial return, but I try to look at what's the relationship between the startup and Telefonica. Can I leverage on that? Because that's when I get the most sense of it, right? So what opinion do you have about corporate venture capitals in general in Germany?
Oh, well, in general, a good one.
Okay.
So I think the key here is that everybody needs to be aware of the fact that it's a slightly different approach. It is, as you said, the ultimate goal is also slightly different, because in the CVC world, I don't really care if I make 2x on the deal or 3x on the deal, but if I have better access to that technology or to that team because I'm closer to them, this is what I want and where I really get the value out of that investment. And so there is a different rationale behind it, and that also takes a different skill set. It takes different processes and different people to pull that off. And so I'd say I in general I have a good view on that, and I think DT also with T Capital in that sense makes an outstanding job from my perspective, because they realized that and said, okay, we need a clear separation of exactly these these two distinct strategies.
Yep.
And you have to just have take care. I think what the drawback on the CVC model sometimes is that you invest in startups very early, and then there is a tendency, do I use them as a prolonged workbench? And it's actually almost then a corporate company already, and not a startup anymore that has the room to grow. Or sometimes it's if people invest and then after 2 or 3 years they progress on their corporate career, then as a startup you lose the person that actually invested in you as the contact person. Yeah. These are things that I think both sides need to be mindful of. But if you are, then obviously that's also a good model that works, but with a different rationale. I think it's a different approach.
And then even in your stage, let's call it Series B, I guess there would be different approaches, as you said. But are you, because when I think about it, I guess it depends on the company that gets in. But let's say there's an open round and you're leading the round, and then you have a corporate venture capital that is jumping in at that stage. Do you normally tend to think, well, this could be a stopper for the company because at some point they may want to acquire and therefore that will limit the growth of the company? Or do you tend to think it's good because we have the M&A already there, we have the exit strategy there? Does it really depend on the company? Or like, what's the approach in that stage to corporate venture capital adding big checks into a round?
I think it's a case-by-case decision, yes, case-by-case decision, case-by-case analysis, because there is cases where a corporate via a specific access, go-to-market opportunities can add very much value at that stage. And the dangers that you just alluded to from is this a stopgap because then nobody else will look at it from an M&A perspective, or will they limit it to grow? That is also a function of obviously the contractual rights. Is that a minority investment where the strategic says, hey, I just want to have a bit of skin in the game also from a financial perspective. I'm in the cap table with, I don't know, 2 to 8% or something like that. I don't have any specific rights, blocking rights, veto rights, whatever. Then from a governance perspective, nothing would speak against that. I'm a bit careful of saying, oh, I take this investor in the Series B, and then I can say the M&A is already clear. There I would be careful. But it's a case by case decision, really. If it makes sense, what's the motivation from the corporate side? How much value is it actually for the startup? Why do I need an investment or have them on the cap table to harvest on the potential? And why is it not a general partnership? For that matter. So this comes in different flavors, but in general, it's a case by case decision.
This leads me, like the fact that how you think of others getting into the cap table, etc., and how you think of your strategy. This leads me to the question of who would you say that are your main customers? Because you have your LPs, you have these angel investors, seed funds, etc., that are kind of providers, have the suppliers of the LPs, and then you also have the startups, that is also your core. Do you have any prioritization between these stakeholders? Who are your main, let's say, customers?
Obviously, I think the two key stakeholders are the LPs and the founders. LPs because without their trust and their financial investment, there is no fund, and we cannot do anything. But equally important, obviously, is the trust of the entrepreneurs who trust us that we bring more than just money, that we will help them on the governance side, help them on the go-to-market side, help them build a great, lasting, successful company. So, and this trust, I think, at least I personally value equally.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. And today's episode is sponsored by Wayra. Wayra is the corporate venture capital unit of Telefónica Group. We have presence in Brazil, the rest of Latin America, UK, Spain, and Germany, where we are right now in the Munich offices where we record this episode and this show. As Wayra, we scout, invest, and foster business between our startups and the Telefónica business units, among other things. We provide an access to a network of more than 300 million homes and a powerful B2B network all around the globe. So now I will keep you going with the episode, keep you posted, and stay in touch. Let's change a little bit now the topic of the conversation, instead of the operational things from DTCP and the objectives and organization, and let's go a little bit to the market situation, because it would be the same thing for you, that you go to different events and conferences and people is telling look, we're shrinking the amount of capital raised, which is a fact. It's shrink for the last 2 years, let's say, almost. How do you see the situation in growth? Because I've seen some data that says that basically pre-seed and seed valuations will remain even with the lower capital now, but valuations in growth, etc., reduce and tend to be smaller. How do you see it from your side?
I think that's a fair assessment. I think at least from what I could see on the early stage and the seed side, they were pretty much resilient also over the last 2 years, because it's such a long way still for them to any thinking about exit or what have you, that also when times are tough, you can start building an MVP. That doesn't stand in the way. Maybe it's even, there's an argument to say it's actually a better time, because if you manage to build an MVP that provides value in tough times, amazing, it will work in good times as well. So I think there that was fairly stable. On the growth side, you're absolutely right. I think there were quite a number of fundraisers in 21 that either should not have happened or not have happened at that scale. And I'm not finger pointing to the startups here. No, you have to look into the mirror as an investor here as well. And that led to the fact that I think both round sizes and valuations were slightly inflated. And we saw the result of that in 22 and 23 with markets coming down. All of a sudden, a significant portion of the growth stage startup ecosystem, they raised a lot of money on specific growth targets. They had a cost structure attached to that, and then there came headwinds from the market. You don't meet the growth targets, but you have the cost structure, so you have to adjust to that.
Yep.
With that, you don't really have the original equity story, growth story anymore, and all of a sudden you need to adjust your structure, company structure. So basically firing people, and get into a more efficient ground. I think that was the key target for the last 2 years, and get a bit more stable, and then go out and fundraise again. And then obviously there were multiple compression, and so from that perspective, valuations are at growth stage at different points as well, a bit more sensible. I think there are still outliers. So the hottest startups will still raise at very, very high valuations. But in general, I think there was a shake-up and a bit of return to normalcy in the market, also in the growth stage. This year, at least how it started, I'm actually fairly optimistic. Optimistic in the sense that many of the discussions that we had over the past 2 years were with startups where you could see where they were too early for us. So there is early promising startups coming, and now they're growing into their Series B or early Series C stage. And this is what we see now. And they don't have that baggage of 21. Yeah. And so from that perspective, I think this reset of the market, we see that. We see that starting now. And that is very great to see. And I think on the later stage side of things, also there, companies now use the last 2 years to get back into more efficient waters, have a proper structure and setup that is adjusted to the times that we're in currently and the growth that they see currently. And there are also the discussions from a valuation perspective. Flat round can be a good sign from that perspective, because you can say, okay, maybe valuation was a bit inflated over the past 2 years, but now I grew into that valuation. Maybe I raise now a little bit less because I also need a little bit less because I'm more efficient, so I can digest that dilution that I would get from that round. So I think I'm optimistic about 24 in that respect. It's at least starting a lot better than the last 2 years started.
That's good. That's a good. We need some optimistic messages as well. I don't know how deep you want to get into valuations, but it's a topic that I particularly like. But from your perspective, when does it make sense for you to start saying, let's apply X times EBITDA, let's apply X time revenue? When does it make sense? When the company has 10K, maybe not. Right? So
EBITDA you won't see until the very late stages.
Yeah.
so I think there you're in PE territory mostly. And so, well, I think pre-seed, seed, that's you raise on the vision. And you're coming more from how much do I need to get to the next clear milestone? What
Just
does
in
that
18
milestone look like?
months.
And how much dilution can I digest? And does that still make sense from a rational perspective? I think that's the approach you have there. I would say. In Series A, once you have 1 million in ARR and above, you're still applying at 1 million in ARR, you're still applying the same rationale, but you start looking at least at the financials. Oh, there is a potential there. You have, 4 quarters of data. You can see this goes in the right direction. So, but you're typically still not on the ARR multiple side of things. Series B, thank you very much. Series B and later, yes, this is ARR territory. So if you have 5 to 10 million in ARR, this is when valuation is based. At least in our case, strictly this is an ARR multiple discussion, because you already also look at what is my future financing expectation for the company, how many future rounds will they need, how much money will that be, what is an exit that I could envision for that company, just to get a feeling, and what are multiples that are paid in that area. And so to do that backwards math. And so there you are in valuation by multiple.
Okay. So you said something that even I totally understand. It could shock some people. That is, EBITDA, we go to later stages. Because that's what people also in the seed says. EBITDA positive, just let's go to Series B. That for them is too far away. But for you, being in Series B is like, no, let's go to later stages. But even you go to companies like Fastly, or companies that are tech companies that are growing very rapidly in terms of revenue, but they still struggling in terms of costs. And so it always fascinates me, the fact on how different people at different stages look at the same company, right? So how to formulate this question? You see the revenues, you see the ARR, you get to this 5 to 10 million ARR. And then what you're doing is a forecast game. You're trying to predict what's going to happen based on what happened before. But then, is there any key parameters that you say, okay, I cannot look at the profitability of the company. This will not work now. This may work in 3 years, 5 years. What else should I look beyond revenues that will make my life easier and I can sleep easier as an investor?
Yeah. I think at any stage, as an investor, and also I think as a startup, at any given stage, you want to see and assess how fast am I growing and how efficient am I growing. The difference per stage is that efficiency is measured differently.
Okay.
Where the seed stage is, okay, how many conversations do I need with potential prospects to turn them into test customers and have an efficiency metrics there, to making that up. I think at the very late stage, you're right there, it's about EBITDA, your general profit margin, what have you. In our stage, where I'd say, broadly speaking, in between, we care a lot about efficiency. So the benchmarking that I just told you, there is a set of, I think, 40 different key KPIs that we look at in general. The major ones that we look at address growth. They address the operational and go-to-market efficiency. So we use, in this case, cash efficiency in general, where we see, okay, how much money the company burned to get to that level of ARR, and also look at that in time series. And the magic number, which is addressing the go-to-market or sales efficiency. And with that, you can immediately see, okay, is there actually at this stage already, is there an efficient go-to-market engine?
Okay.
And on the cash efficiency side, you can see, okay, is the overall organization on an efficient level? Okay. While the company is still burning money. Because you see, okay, if a company spends $1 burns $1 to get $1 in ARR, that for us is an efficient company.
Okay.
If you talk to PE people, they start crying at this ratio. But as a VC, that is efficient. So we care a lot about efficiency. We talk and work with our companies very diligently on that to see, okay, what's the best combination of aggressive growth while still being efficient and not growth at all cost. And so net retention, these are all KPIs that cater to that. So I'd say we and also our peers care a lot about efficiency. It's just not measured as EBITDA, but different KPIs. I think that's the answer here.
The net retention, it's been like, let's say, it's a little bit on trend now. Everyone, I think it's a metric that before was not that famous. Now everyone's talking about net retention. But I mean, you were no, I just think that it makes sense. These difference between PE, that's why the PE tries to control the business, and the VC doesn't try to control the business. They let them grow because they see the vision, while the PE is more in the operational side. From my perspective, I don't know if you share it, meaning I'm going to own the company, while you say I'm going to help the company grow and I'm going to walk with them in this path, right?
Yeah, I still believe PE companies have the will to let their companies grow.
Yeah.
So I would not be that harsh. Yeah. But I think what you're referring to is there is a different playbook and approach to it. So as a PE, I typically, I want to have more control on the governance side, be deeper in the operations maybe, or have more direct impact on the operational side and more access than on the VC side. But I think both parties, both VC and PE, you want to see your companies grow.
Then if we move a little bit into the startup perspective, what they want to get from you is that normally in earlier stages, it's like, how do you create this wow effect? How do you try to lure or attract the investors with your pitch? Because the sales quality of the CEO or whoever is doing the pitch, that's normally the CEO. In your case, which is more financial, what are you looking for in a pitch or when you check a deck? Or does it even make sense to take a look at the pitch? Because you said we build the relationships 2-3 years before, and it makes sense because the company is also, you can check what they're doing. Is it even applicable, this question to you that I try?
Yeah, of course. I mean, building the relationship 2 or 3 years ago, but even there, it starts at somewhere, and a deck about, hey, this is the company in a nutshell. This is what it does. It always helps. I would say, and I think personally, what I like is simply a clear and structured overview, where you say, okay, this is the problem that we are solving. This is why this is a big problem. This is our ICP. So these are the kind of people or companies that have this headache. This is our product. So this is how we solve that headache. This is us, and this is our financial performance. These are the key metrics along which we steer our company, and this is where they are. And then obviously a view on competition. So nothing.
A classic scheme.
It's a classic scheme that helps you start the conversation and helps you start the conversation from that perspective. I think the key that I'm looking for is consistent information, so that numbers add up and don't change over time.
Yeah.
In that respect. But I think the classical standard short pitch deck, I'm a fan of 6-7 precise slides rather than a 50-page deep dive for a late seed company.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
Other than that, I mean, what creates a lot of wow effect is customer statements. There's been companies where we invest, or a company where I distinctly remember where we just got positive customer reference calls and feedbacks, also for the ones that they didn't tell us to talk to. So that is always great. And then it's the personal relationship where you simply meet, you see you strike it on a personal level, but you also see how the founder or how this founding team is burning for their idea. What is their motivation? Why do they think this is my pain that I want to solve? That goes a long way. That goes a long way.
I was expecting you to give, like, when you said before doing the evaluation of the company, to talk about the magic number, which I like. I was maybe the startup listening were like, is he going to give a magic slide? I would love to have a magic slide.
No, and I mean, as always, I think ask 3 VCs and you'll get 4 opinions.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. That's why we like in the,
have a series,
in the show. Yeah. That's why we like to have many different VCs.
Yeah.
Can you name me 1-2 success stories that you've seen, first POV, that developed with you while being in DTCP, of a company that you loved right from the beginning, that they had something in the deck, they have something in the PowerPoint that you said, wow, these guys.
I think that the 3 companies that I think would, if you're referring to the deck in general, I think the investment, our initial processes with both LeanIX and Pipedrive, I think I would mention here, as this was, LeanIX was at Series B stage when we invested, and what you could already see there was that they had a very clear vision. Everything was very clean. Governance was spotless, and you could see that in the deck, the number, the way they were talking, that was 35 people, I think, when we invested. Okay. But already there, the foresight, the way they treated also their team members, etc. You got the feeling that this is flawless execution. And this is why we want to be part of that story, and that company, and especially these people. And that was a fantastic ride for 6 years.
Huge compliment to them.
And with Pipedrive was, to be honest, I mean, we started we're a B2B SaaS investor. And we started on the enterprise side of things. So only companies that were geared towards selling to enterprises. Because we lacked the feeling at the beginning, what's the dynamic? Because the dynamics and go-to-market, if you sell to SMBs, is very, very different.
Yeah.
Churn looks different in SMB than it looks in enterprises. And so a few motions are different. And we didn't have the feeling, the companies that we saw, we never got over the hump, so to speak. Along came Pipedrive. They were further along the LeanIX. That was a Series C. And they sent us the metrics, and we're like, oh, this is what SMB looks like if it's done properly. And this is a company in control of their numbers. I think that was the shortest team discussion we ever had on a company. And that was really fascinating, because from that you can derive a lot. If you have proper numbers and a proper set of KPIs from the company, you can derive that they are measuring the right things, they are steering along these things, that they have processes in place to actually collect these numbers, which is not a given at any stage, and that you can have. It talks a lot about governance and how the business is run. Okay, you can derive from that, and that was what really impressed us at Pipedrive. Apart from personally being a customer before, loving the brand,
which is super important.
Immediately falling in love with the management team and the founders. Wow. So that's just one piece of the puzzle here, but that was, I think, to your question, one of the key things.
It gets my attention because I would say that Pipedrive would have been a difficult investment decision because I guess the numbers were astonishing, right? But I can imagine that if I would be there, maybe I would be like, yeah, but maybe Salesforce can do something similar. It's about a pipe that you can, how easily replicable is this? Yeah, maybe it could be prettier, Trello, or like, there's so many different to organize deals and so many competition, and the market is that big, and so many ways to showcase the information, because at the end of the day, it's showcasing the information and organize.
Yeah.
Why didn't you have those concerns about them?
Well, obviously, it was things that we also looked at, and as you say, this is a market that is certainly also to this day not competition free.
No.
I'd say. But tying back to the numbers, what you could see from the numbers simply that yes, differentiation is not due to tech depth, I would say, but differentiation here was an amazing killer brand and reputation in the market, as they were one of the first movers to this SMB category when they started off in 2010. You could see that in the go-to-market efficiency simply because customers signed up by the thousands because they knew Pipedrive was like and is like Tempo, or Tesa for that matter. The company name was a synonym for if I'm an SMB company, I'm small and I need something that works from the get-go, that it easily digestible, and that doesn't come with an integration project and doesn't cost me 15,000 a year, then Pipedrive is the way to go. And that you could see from a go-to-market perspective in the numbers. And in the product, as we've been users ourselves before, you could see exactly that. I sign up, I start it, if I can use it, so can others. And it gives me exactly what I want, being a company that they are addressing.
Okay.
For I would imagine Pipedrive would not be the CRM solution for IBM.
Okay.
I'm with you there.
Okay.
But that's also not who they are selling to. This is not their ICP. But for their ICP, they're on the SMB side of things and the larger SMBs, usability, brand, ease of use, the UX, that was picture perfect.
So it's pure execution.
And then you see, okay, the execution, and again we are with the numbers. There was and is no debate about that.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. Like there are these markets. Like yesterday I was having a conversation about the breach there is in the human interfaces when you're talking about cybersecurity. Right? And you're like, well, what's the easiest point to tackle? The humans, because we're a bit stupid sometimes. So like, can you do a transfer to this person or whatever? Like you can fake it, and like there's a huge market there, and how you tackle the human vulnerability related to cybersecurity. But no one is yet getting the market. There's no one key player. There's huge market, probably one of the biggest in the cyber space. And with Pipedrive, it was a bit similar. It's like there's a huge market here, but I guess many people will come in. But there's a slightly difference in I like it because it's so sweet. The differences, and it's about execution, and you don't know execution until you see properly. And you have a lot of different competitors. So it's not like this, I have this brilliant idea, this brilliant technology, I'm going to invest in this because these guys have the patents and everything. No, this is softer. I love it.
And I mean, Pipedrive, when we invested, they had the good thing was there, and there is the USP or the value add that they can bring. They had one operational topic where they were looking for an operator in the board, and both Thomas, myself had background in that. So we worked with the management for quite a while, and that enabled us to invest despite them having Atomico, Insight, Bessemer, Rembrandt already on the cap table, because the management thought, okay, these are the guys that can bring something we don't have on the board at this point in time. So that was great.
Great idea. Really, and there's something I've never asked before, but I think I should have. And it's about I ask about the success stories, but I don't ask about the failure stories. Can you name one that hurt to you? Like, man, either we let it go and we didn't invest, or this is the most difficult one, maybe the most difficult. It is we invested in this company, we were so wrong.
So that we invested and we were so wrong. No, that didn't happen.
It didn't happen. It will not happen again.
And it will never happen. So there is no name that comes to mind. I'm very sorry there. Full stop.
My bad. I don't know what I was thinking.
Exactly. And I mean about the misses. Yes, obviously you had companies that where you should have invested that you missed. I think the one that presumably there was one company, also not naming names, but there was one company where we had the opportunity to join their late Series A, so to speak. And you could already see this was great traction, but also, I mean, tech differentiation was a bit of a question mark, I'm going to say. But great traction, but a little bit too earlier than we would like. The check size was a little bit too small for us. And so maybe we wait this one out and take the next round. And
IPO.
They're preparing for that, as far as I'm aware. and that little piece of check size, I think, would have been close to, by now we would own 10% of the company or something like that. So that really hurt, because you can really say, okay, we missed the bus here. Full stop. This is on us. There was nothing else that kept us from doing that. This was only us. And I believe every investor that I know has stories.
It's part of the game.
Has stories like that. Yeah.
If you wouldn't have any, then you would have a lot of wrong investments. You would say, if you didn't let anything go away, that's because you're investing in many mistakes. Which it's okay. It depends on everyone's thesis. What was your check size minimum?
So typically we invest 5 million and above.
Okay.
So sweet spot check size is somewhere between 15 to 25 million.
Okay.
And in this specific, we had the opportunity to invest, I think, 2.2.
So it's really like
that
half of your minimum.
And
well, it happens. Why didn't you able to invest in the next round? They have cash enough, or?
Well, they had cash enough, and the answer was, guys, you missed your stop last time.
Okay.
There is relationships where unfortunately it evolves that way.
I see. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's you learn and you have different discussions the next time. When you see something where check size is a little bit smaller.
I know that you want to be in the VC rather than the startup world now, but what startup will you build today? If you have to build one, what do you think is the space that you like the most? Or do you want to put a coffee shop?
No, I think the startup I think I don't have a specific startup. I think I would try, what I find very interesting in general is obviously leveraging anything that happens on the AI, on the LLM side of things, to leverage that for the application layer.
Trendy topic.
And yes, it's a very trendy topic at this point in time. It's very difficult to create. You can create small products very, very fast, but I think the key difficulty here is making something or creating something that is easy to use and sustainable and really removes headaches in a long-term fashion. And here I think looking at the application layer, be that on any kind of assistance side, be that on the DevOps side, I think there is lots of potential also going forward. And I think this is where I would spend my time. I think if it's not opening basically a Boulder center. But that's a different kind of startup. Then
is a different kind of. Would you? By the way, I know this is a weird question to make now, but would you, because I wouldn't call a coffee shop or Boulder a startup, because my definition is not technology based, and probably the growth is very limited, which is arguably because you could say Starbucks had a huge growth and they were a coffee shop, right? How would you define a startup?
Well, obviously, from looking at it from the professional side of things, I would agree to or have also the view that we are looking for tech and things like that. Having said that, also if you start an agency, a consultancy, or professional service company, or also I think also the Boulder Center, I would imagine it's an entrepreneurial story. The challenges that you face are per se the same. They come in different looks. Some challenges are a little bit different, but at the end of the day, the journey that this is your baby, this is your idea, you're responsible, the buck stops with you, you are the one who has to make sure that operations are done flawlessly, you are the one who's responsible for attracting the right customers, for hiring the right people. It's in different scales, and sometimes obviously different scenarios, but I think the entrepreneurial start or journey or burden, I think is relatively similar. So I would not say that it's particularly easier to start an agency or something.
No, I agree. Even like to be able to run properly an ice cream place properly, like, okay, you have the suppliers.
I mean, I'm with you that obviously the operational challenge is different if you run one ice cream place here in Kaufingerstraße or if you run a global organization with 1,000 people having 200 million in ARR. Yes, there is certainly different. It takes a different kind of leadership, different kind of operation. I fully agree to that. But yeah.
I just realized that we are over the hour already.
Well, anyone can listen on 1.5.
Yeah. So we talked about this at the beginning, by the way. And if you made it, this is another experiment that I'm doing. If you made it to this part of the interview, you can drop an emoji with the rocket below in the comments. That's an experiment I'm doing. Okay. But it just went so fast that I had a blog related to the future that I didn't ask any.
Okay.
So I will keep it just the most interesting question of this blog related to the future is you partially, I think you answered with the LLMs and when you're thinking about trends. But the question is, what are the trends, the main trends that you see in the market that are attractive to invest or to build a company in?
I think I would settle for the LLM side again. I think it is the investment story there is still a little bit of a difficult one because there is lots of noise, lots of hype, what have you. But I do believe that what is happening here is certainly transformative on a generational scale. The world will look different in 5, 6, 7 years because of that technology. There will be consequences from that technology in good and bad that we cannot really grasp today. So this is, I think, the key topic to focus on. And I was at a dinner yesterday where Jonas from Aleph Alpha was there as well, who said, hey, it's so great and lucky that we are alive at a point in time where something like this is shaped. The future is shaped at that point in time, and we are actually in a position to be part of shaping that and not just watching as a bystander. And I think for that I'm very grateful. And we're trying to play our part here with our investment in Cohere, looking at obviously the broader landscape there as well on the application side. But that is the one that I think I would watch out for, because that will have a lot of reverberations down the road.
Would you look to solve any particular thing that you've seen in a particular field that is look, LLMs in here in this particular case?
No, I would not go down into the specific to say now at this that from my view this is what needs to be done. I think in general the potential and the order of magnitude that this can have, and I presume will have, that will be very, 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 very huge. And so I think staying close to that and seeing what happens, what sticks, and what we can make of that and how to shape it, that will be key, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's a nice moment to be alive. There are a lot of things that are going to change, and we're going to be able to presence it from first perspective. So we're lucky in that sense. I don't know if there's anything else that you think you're missing and you want to say, that anything related.
No. I'd say again, thank you for hosting me. Thank you for bringing me to Munich.
Anytime.
I always like being here. And yeah, this was a pleasure. This was fun. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Michael, for coming. It was my pleasure, honestly. Thanks a lot.